Okay, in Maslow's hierarchy of need, right at the basement, we have three very outstanding needs: the need for food, clothes, and shelter. The shelter rings a bell because a lot of us have issues with that. I'm talking about accommodation. And today on Conversations, we will be zeroing in on landlord-tenant relationship. But of course, it will also get down to good neighborliness. But before we get to introduce ourselves in this house, let's get to find out from people, from the street, really. How do they feel? What is their take about their landlord living with them on the same compound?
It creates problem. Even in Nigeria, it creates problem now. When you stay with your landlord and landlady, every day you asking you about money. You say you have not paid this one, you have not paid one. Even you have a problem within your room, you tell the landlady or landlord, he cannot solve it. You will see some people are staying inside and the rain is entering their houses, telling the landlord he cannot do it, telling the landlady she will not do it. That's the main problem. And using the toilet. Landlady, you see the toilet spoil, the landlord, toilet spoil, you will tell the landlord. Landlord will not do it. And when the rain comes, he will try to say, give me money, give me money. No, 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 no.
I live with my landlady for about 10 years today without any problem. She's a peaceful woman. Even if you don't pay her, she will still want to pray for you to have and pay her. She has no problem with anybody at all. But if you prove to be a problem person to her, what she will do, she will just tell you to leave.
If you can be able to pay your house rent yearly, you don't have any problem with landlord. But some people are misbehaving. Whenever they are living with landlord, they'll say, landlord do this, landlord do that, landlady do this. But you are not paying your rent. If you pay your complete do rent, your landlord can even make you a friend. To call a spade, that wasn't a precious time talking cock and bull story. Why can't you live with my landlord and landlady? But since people are so reluctant and so selfish, they cannot even pay their rent. What are you trying to say? I can live with my landlord and landlady. You're ED.
Not planned. I already live in the same compound with my landlord and landlady. It's a good experience. They are very caring people.
There's just nothing. It depends on the person you are staying with. Every other person can be good or bad. So it does not matter whether it's a landlord or a tenant.
I won't stay in the same house with my landlord, and I won't stay in the same house with my landlady. Because if you stay with them, there is a lot of problems that they will be bringing. They will not like one or two things that you are doing. Maybe even your character, they will not like it. You understand me? So it's not more. Sometimes it's not everybody's blood matched together, So you cannot. Me myself, I can't stay in the same house with my landlord or my landlady.
If there is an option, then you will leave, stay away from them, because in some time the landlord, it will give you problems. Then you can't solve it. You will bring so many people to the house. Then you can't talk to them. They will do unnecessary things which it will not help you or the sitting around your neighbors. And if you are far from them, you stay comfortable and do your things at the right times, the way you want it.
The problem with landlord or landlady is they always look at their property. They always see anything you do that you're hurting their own property. So slightest mistake is going to be a problem. And there will always seem to be competition between your wife and the wife of the landlord. For example, if you're having to be blessed more than them, when they see your lifestyle, they always like to increase your rent.
Okay, like I introduced earlier, it is Conversations, and I'm not here alone. I refuse to introduce the guests because a lot has been said about this set, that we are not very gender friendly. But today, I've decided to stand out alone and let the men sit and occupy. So I'm not going to introduce you. Do your thing by yourself. It's all male affair.
Well, Chukuma. My name is Chukuma Haka, and I work and I do business.
I am Ojile Abanatanya. I'm a legal practitioner, a human rights activist, and social commentator.
Is that what
Kevin Fineface, public good advocate, and a security expert. I think it's going to be a good conversation to have.
Mr. Kevin, you're saying that because you think it's all male-dominated. But you know something? Women are very powerful.
Women are the most powerful people on earth.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, so landlord-tenant relationship. Our audience, we just went outside, sampled their opinion. A lot of them seem not to want their landlord living on the same compound with them, within the same premises. I don't know. Let me start from the lawyer. What do you think could be the problem?
Well, actually speaking, I don't think it's a misnomer to have your landlord living with you. As a matter of fact, some will even prefer their landlord living with them. We're talking about individual characters here. Of course, I wouldn't mind if I'm a tenant and I have a landlord staying with me who doesn't give me a problem. I don't mind. But the general conception out there, actually, tenants, most especially, they don't like living with their landlords. Or they don't want their landlord to live in the same premises with them for very, very obvious reasons.
What are those
one
obvious
of which will be, well, yeah, you know, it has to do with mentality. That your landlord will always be checking you. He wouldn't want you to. Sometimes they will say it's perception, like I said. They wouldn't want you. You will think, okay, maybe if he sees me with a good car today, he has this impression about me. Something like that. I know what I'm saying, actually.
It's not out of place.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying.
I've experienced that.
Like, seriously?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
You have?
Yeah.
I've experienced.
Personally, I have too. Where I
in the south.
Yeah,
those places they call Align Dam. The more you grow, the more they increase the rent. And if they have women that they think you should have been able to fraternize with, and you're not doing same, it's also a problem.
Women that you shouldn't?
You should be fraternizing with.
Okay.
Maybe the landlord or the landlady has a daughter, you know, and you're bringing people from outside, and the ones there, where are those that will take them? So, you know, it's also a problem. And that's why sometimes some people don't want to live with the landlords. Although some would prefer, because if the landlord is there, you kind of have answers to almost everything that you have. But the peculiarity is sometimes subjective anyway.
All right, you were about to share your experience.
Yeah, I did my youth call service in Lagos, where I was staying as a call member there. We had this experience personally. Before then, of course, my landlord never knew I was a lawyer, or I am a lawyer. So there was this instance of a particular situation. There was this tenant in the compound. The landlord woke everybody in the compound one early morning at about 6:30, 7 about, and said, no, this is not where he wanted his tenant to be dumping refuse in the compound. And besides, who was the person that killed a chicken and left the feathers scattered all over? And the guy said he was the one. He said, hey, you see, I told you, you are eating chicken, you have not paid me for last month. These are practical experience. These are practical experience. And of course, there was a time he was even trying to also get to my toes. When I had to let him know, of course, I came into the...
No, he was trying to get into his territory. He just
yes,
told him,
and I had to let him
rights.
know. Yes, I know my rights. In as much as I'm a tenant in your company, I also have a right to stay in the company. As long as I pay my rent as at when due, I don't see... You are not supposed to encroach into my own territory. Yes.
Wow. I liken it to be like a case where you ask a woman, would you like your mother-in-law to live with you in your own house?
You know,
women don't want their mother-in-law to be in their husband's
subjectively.
It's like that. Most tenants don't want the landlords to be in the house. Not like the women hate their mother-in-laws. But because one day you come and cook and your mother-in-law will say that, why is it that pepper didn't come out very well in this soup? And why is it that salt is not very, very well in this soup?
Or the meat you're buying. That's
the meat,
what my son's man is getting into.
Yes, you understand. So they tend to
put their eyes beyond where they're supposed to put their eyes. I fell into the two categories. So sometimes I look at it from the point of tenant and from the point of landlord. It's somehow the tenants want their freedom. I want my freedom as a tenant. And most times, the landlords also want to protect their property because they want to avoid abuse.
Yeah.
Tenants abuse there are tenants you would have. You wish you never had that kind of tenant in your home. So you would want to protect everything because people would want to destroy things as if it was not done with money.
Yes.
So because of that, some landlords become protective. And in most cases, some are overprotective. Tenants would want to be, I once wanted to rent a house here and the landlord gave me rules and regulations. I just came out and I told my friend that took me there, I think I'm going to a boarding house, not a rental.
Where the landlord will tell you that you must come by 10.
No, he told me. That was what he told me. He said, you see, this is my house. You must not come after 10 o'clock. If it's after 10 o'clock, you have to sleep outside. I said, yes, sir. And like I came out, I told my friend, after I've gotten married, I had my own children, somebody's coming to tell me when to come back or when not to come back. He told me, I told him, sir, I now asked him, because when I knew I wasn't going to stay in the house, and I said, okay, let me know who this man is. And I asked him, sir, what if I have a meeting and that meeting had to last till about 11:30? He said, better remain there.
Are you serious?
In this Abuja.
In this Abuja.
Yeah,
anyway, a colleague of mine actually shared his experience where he was leaving before he had to run away. You know, our job here is kind of crazy. We go out very regular times and all that. He comes home like 12:01. The landlord will complain the next day, he woke me up. He did not do anything. He said, the minute you touched the gate, I knew you were coming in. And then he goes out too early. Maybe he's on weekend deal. The landlord will say, why do you leave your house so early? What is chasing you? You have to wait to go at regular time. He said, oh, guys, it's my kind of job. He said, no. He's a young boy. He plays music. The man said, no, you're shaking the DPC of the house.
Were you just doing partying or what?
The landlord told me the kind of visitors I should have.
You must not come with a woman.
He told me the kind of visitors I should
You must
have.
not come. Why are they always particular about that? Is it so that you can marry their daughters?
I think some of those landlords would do that, just needed money to support the home, but don't want visitors.
They want to eat their cake and have it.
Just want to eat their cake and have it. So they're not really in the business of renting out these apartments. They wanted to have this. I mean, I have a landlord who read out, list of things you must not do. At a certain time, you must go to bed. You must go to bed at a certain time because they don't want noise anywhere. You must not come with your female visitor since you're not married. Do whatever you want to do outside. Don't come there. And my friend was telling me that was when he just left. He said, he told the guy, it's okay. I'll talk to you later. That was the end of it.
I told the man asked me, well, hope the house was a beautiful house. The man said, hope you like the house. I said, yes, sir. He said, hope you're going to come back. I said, yes, sir. As I came back, I told my friend, oh yeah, if you catch me here again. I said, I've lived all my life having my freedom, and I'm coming to this place, you want to regulate. I said, this man, for first of all, look person face now. You would have looked at the person you want to rent your house to.
I think one of the reasons why we'll get some of these things we're discussing now is sometimes, because actually fundamentally it's a misnomer. The position of the law is that as long as I pay my rent as at when due and I keep to other covenants that we have in this tenancy agreement, I am entitled to enjoy quiet possession of that place. But you see, sometimes out of desperation on the part of a tenant, you're looking for a house, you're desperate, you meet a landlord and say, don't do this, don't do that, don't come back to this property anything after 10, don't go out before 6 a.m. And maybe where you are pressed to leave. And you decide to commit yourself. Because some of these things, if it is not written down black and white, and you are pending your signature to it, they cannot hold you accountable. If I see such landlord, as long as he tells me verbally and he didn't reduce it into writing, I will go into the house and I will do otherwise. He can't hold me accountable. But by the time he reduces these things into writing and I append my signature to it, I am bound by what he has told me. And I got myself into it out of desperation.
You see, that tenancy agreement which you're talking about,
yes,
a lot of times they are written in such a way that it's so long and so tiny. Some of us don't have patience to read it.
Just like
so
what
we
he
don't
said.
we don't get to. It's like reading manual of a machine.
Your desperation makes it difficult for you to even want to read through it.
Exactly.
So should we be going into, occupying a place, bearing our own lawyer to help us interpret what is in the
I think
tenancy?
it makes the work easy. If you're going to spend money to get a space and have freedom, we find it difficult to bring a little stipend for a lawyer who knows better than us. I can't remember when last I entered into an agreement without having a lawyer go through it, because there are some clauses you would not understand that the legal person would understand and interpret. But we know in this part of the world, we try to hide money. We try to protect money. And I always tell my friends, cheap is not cheap. When you try to avoid that thing that you're trying to save money, you end up spending more.
I know why it's painful.
Yes, there are some clauses that could come up, and your lawyer would have said, no, don't enter into this covenant. And because you didn't want, we always assume we know more. No be law, no be law. We always assume we know more. And you see us getting into something. And when it gets to choke us, you see us shouting for a lawyer to come. By then, we have committed ourselves.
Expensive.
So it's advisable that if you want to go into anything and you want to tell me to pay legal fee, if you say I should pay legal fee, I tell you, can't I get my own lawyer to do it? Then I'll send it to you to review.
Beautiful.
Because if you get your lawyer to do it and send to the person to review, you're on the safe side. But when he gives you from his lawyer, you have to also look for another lawyer to do it. That means paying twice, yes. So it's advisable people to go through a lawyer when you're going to an agreement with people how to do with house. Go through a lawyer, secure your end, and make sure that everything before you move in or before you release someone, it's not free. For as long as it's not free, it is. If I correct me if I'm right, I'm wrong. They say that tenancy between agreement between a tenant and a landlord is a temporary possession of a place for a particular period of time.
Yeah.
So if I'm temporarily possessing this ground and I paid you for it, I am the landlord.
No,
I am the landlord.
Yes, saying that, I want to ask really. Before a landlord comes to my place for inspection, should it just happen on me?
No.
He should give me a notice.
There's a notice, and this notice is, like I said, in the agreement, in the tenancy agreement, yes, what is called covenant. We have the landlord's covenant, we have the tenant's covenant, all embedded in one document.
And it's 10 command. 10.
No. Okay. They're all embedded in one commandment. What is just your do's and don'ts? Okay. My do's and don'ts.
The landlord shall.
Yeah, the landlord shall give. The landlord shall give you adequate notice before any inspection
of a house.
Of a house.
Sorry, Leonard friend, saying adequate is not also enough.
No,
24 hours could be adequate.
Yes.
But it should be at your convenience.
There must be, specification that up to a week, up to 2 weeks, notice before this.
And it should be at your convenience.
You see, the beautiful thing about this agreement that we're talking about is what the both parties agreed together. Right? This is what I want to be included in the tenancy.
There must be a compromise. Both parties come together.
If not for desperation, just like we've been saying from the onset, if not for desperation, but the landlord can furnish you with what he has as his own tenancy agreement. You go through it. No, I don't like this clause. Let's change this to this. It's a compromise. You have to reach to an agreement on that. So what you think, and just like my brother here said, it is better you consult your own legal practitioner, because he will protect your interests more than the landlord's lawyer over there. But by the time you bring these things together, this is no landlord, I don't want this. Let's put this. I think it will serve my interest better this way. Of course, we're coming. You have the right. It's your house, in as much as I'm in temporary possession of it. You have the right to come visit. You have the right to come check. Especially when I tell you I have an issue with my maybe roof ceiling, you have the right to come either directly or through your agent to come and inspect. But when you're coming, give me time, 24 hours, 72 hours. It depends on what you agree. It can be 1 week notice. What is the agreement between the both parties?
Now, in checking these things, I've also noticed that most landlords, once they build house, rent out, all they do is every year or every month, however they collect the money, bring the money. Maintenance becomes an issue. Is it really the tenant's space and responsibility to renovate houses, repaint houses? And some of the landlords, when you tell them, he said, see, in fact, some of them are bold enough to tell you, there are 4 people in this building. only your house is dirty. See, this person has repented. This person has repented, and all that. Is it the tenants that should be doing those things?
No, it's not actually the tenant's responsibility to maintain the house in terms of renovation. But it is common sense also for the tenants to know that the place where you live must be kept clean, neat, for your own health and for the health of, for the sake of the other, co-tenants. What we've always found is that if there is any exterior damage, if there is wear and tear, if the roof is leaking, that's not your own. But, what we find is that the landlords oftentimes believe that there are a lot of lords. And so they make you, it says something about desperation. You got into this thing, you really look at your covenants before getting into this thing. It's actually the thing there that the landlord said, if there's any repair, you're the one that will fix it. They didn't even know. And you got into this tenancy agreement without even reading your covenants. That means you'll be responsible. That has to be clearly stated who takes care of what in terms of maintenance, renovation, all of that. But where that is not written, and this is the man's house, what we also find is that some tenants are something else. They live in your place, by the time they leave, they mess up that place.
You're building a new house.
A new house. That's why some persons who invest in property, ideally don't want to spend too much in investing in property, because if you put your money in fixed deposit, you'll make more profits than building a house and less stress, because of the renovation that will take place. Every day somebody moves out of the house, you have to renovate that for the new man that is coming in. Except that tenant remains there for the next 2-3 years, then you're guaranteed that probably you will just use the initiative to do it. Except it is major, then the landlord
Your question, there are responsibilities that are strictly for the landlord, and there are responsibilities that are strictly for the tenant. When it has to do with roof, leakages in the roof, or that the fence has collapsed, or there is a structural damage on the building that had to do with the foundation or the original architectural plan of the building, that's the landlord's responsibility. But that you have an electrical issue in your room and you start calling your landlord, my wire has issue. It's not. For as long as you took off the
even when I need to crack up the conduit?
No, you have to inform him.
Okay.
Yes, you have to inform him. When you took possession of once the house has been given to you, and you took possession of the house and everything in that house, at the time of your taking possession, it's in order. If there is any damage within I told them to pay service charge. They said they weren't going to pay service charge.
So it's their responsibility.
What I wanted to do was have the tenants have a security man that their service charge would pay, have the cleaners that will clean the place. They felt it was a bit high because I told them, where I live in Abuja, that is how it is. We pay service charge, and I don't bother myself on water. If there is no water, I'll just call the water. If there is no light, we have one central generator. Then if the compound is dirty, the people that clean it come every morning. So I know that my money is working for me, so I wouldn't want to bother myself. But they didn't want to do that. If you don't want to do that, you do your work.
Sorry, adding up to what they said, in law, we call it major repairs and minor repairs. Right? The major repairs are basically and strictly the responsibility of the landlord.
Yes.
While the minor repairs, like he said, electrical fittings, the knob to a tab and all that, these are things that were damaged during your possession of the property. So you don't reasonably expect the landlord to come in and say, you call him to come and fix it. But yes, but I'm coming again. I'm coming again. You know why we have all these things, irrespective of whose responsibility it is? All these things, by the time we reduce it, for the avoidance of doubt, by the time we reduce it into this agreement called tenancy agreement, it is well spelled out whose responsibility is this to do this, whose responsibility is this to do that. However, that's why I don't want to strictly say, no, the landlord must do all this, or yes. It is the agreement. Like, for instance, in Abuja, the law regulating tenant-landlord relationship is called the Recovery of Premises Act in Abuja. The law says, except where there is no agreement between the landlord and the tenant, That's when the law comes in to regulate their relationship. But where we have this document that's spelled out, this is my responsibility, this is your responsibility, the law is will just be there watching you guys. It won't come in place. It is when we don't have this agreement between us that the law will come in and say, okay, this thing reasonably, okay, we're talking about a crack, a structural crack on the wall. The landlord is saying, no, it's not me that damaged it, it's you. Then the law will reasonably say, no, this is a major repair. The landlord should show that. Exactly, the landlord should show that. But when we have an agreement that says whether structural, whether minor, the landlord will show that. Of course, the tenant will go to sleep. So it is not really a straight line to say this one must be done by this.
You know, the question I asked earlier regarding this was the question of painting. You know, women, we like lovely aesthetics. So I don't like to go home. As I'm driving in, I'm looking at a gloomy house. It spoils my evening. And I don't want to step out and my house is not looking good. So I was thinking about the painting part of it. We build houses in Abuja here. You see a whole estate is wearing the same color. Sometimes it's their own color. The landlord would have created that color out of a lot of mixture. And then 10 years down the line, the paint is wearing off. Is it the tenant that is supposed to go and repaint that? Even if he's the one, how is he going to generate that paint? Some time ago when I stayed in the Cameroon, every Christmas period, the landlords actually give a retouch to their houses. So you see that festive mood, light up, everywhere gets light up. In Nigeria, you may enter a place, Abuja may not have much of it, but go to a lot of other cities, you enter a place, a whole street, the whole houses are mourning. Their paints are down. Is it the responsibility of the landlord to, or the tenants? Oga landlord, you're here. Oga lawyer, Oya talk.
Truth. Landlords should have periodic touch in their houses. The house is your house. The external, when you talk about repenting, you're talking about the external, not the internal. The external is the responsibility of the landlord.
That's just what I wanted to hear.
If you want your house to be what it should be, you should always have a touch and have a sense of class for your house. It's your property. Your property, you should be also flaunt your property. But when you allow tenants to do, they might go to bring it to the standard you don't want.
Far below.
Yeah, and when they go that below, it's still your property. So people will say, is that not your property? So it's, for me, I think it's the landlord that will do it periodically. You decide if it's annually, twice, every 2 years, you could do that and make sure that the house is uplifted and it's looking nice.
All right.
I feel, I want to be very safe here, right, in answering. He spoke as a landlord. Right, I'm going to speak as a lawyer. Right, what is there is this: the landlord may be unwilling to want to come and paint my house for me periodically. I can say, okay, my next tenancy agreement, let's put it there. I will do this thing at my own cost. So you
deduct it from my...
Yes.
If you're deducting it from your rent, it's the landlord that's doing it. It's not you now.
Yes. The landlord. The landlord don't have the initiative.
The landlord will not accept that because you might just go and give him an overblated cost.
If he doesn't want to, if he doesn't want to have a cost that is high,
he should come and do his job.
The where I'm driving at here is this: all what you want to do or enjoy while in possession of that property, you reduce it into writing. By the time you reduce these things, everybody goes to sleep. You know.
Good point, reducing it to writing. But you see, we also have a challenge because of the full implementation of building codes, you know, in our cities. You don't go to the US, if you live in any community, nobody tells you to mow your grass or water your grass. Because if you don't, they will, no matter you're the owner of the property, you'll be asked to leave that place.
That's environment.
You'll take possession of your property. If it is Christmas and your building is not decorated, your own house not decorated, the community will tell you right there, homeowners will tell you, you can't be part of this community. So we need to begin to enforce the applicable laws. There's a building code responsible for the maintenance of houses. You go to the estate, for instance. There's supposed to be a prototype buildings in that estate. Every year, the colors are supposed to be the same. But today, what do you find? People are changing those structures, and the law is quiet about it. Until one person maybe probably do that. So if we begin to implement building codes, the issue about landlord and tenant who is going to take maintenance will not even come in, because the landlord will know the responsibility. We'll put that as part of a cost in renting out the space, and the tenant also will know that this is a responsibility of the landlord, will reduce his own costs in one other hand and plan his life very well, take care of his interior as much as need to be taken care of. Because, I mean, everybody, we live in this kind of environment where we have to tiptoe of the mess and get into our room and find comfort. You know, so it's what works best, you know, because we're all looking for a way to save money.
Cost.
That is not there. I mean, if you live in Nigeria, you know that the money doesn't come by easily.
Anyway, you know, when we talk about landlord-tenant relationship, the first thing that jumps into the people's mind is the payment. I deliberately left that for now. In Nigeria, we receive salary every month. I'm wondering, Mr. Chukuma, why do you ask me to pay 1 year when you know I'm paid monthly? And then when I'm getting a new house, you're asking me for agreement fee, security fee, legal fee.
I'm not sure it's the landlord that asks for agreement
It's always there. In Abuja now, they collect, the landlord collects even agency fee.
Yes. Well, I would say first is about the norm, is what the people have seen. And, you know, we are very, sorry to say, we're a bit docile. Nobody wants to challenge what they have met in existence.
Desperation.
We think because Mr. A is doing it, Mr. B should do it, and it's not right, it's not wrong. I think is, I grew up as a child in a house where my father is the landlord, and our tenants were paying monthly.
Monthly? Wow.
Our tenants were paying monthly. And there was this tenant that didn't have money to pay for about 4 or 5 months. My father wanted to reject the tenant, and I went and told my dad, you can see that they don't have money. Still give them some time. But I grew up to meet a world where it is compulsory now that before you get a house, you have to pay 1 year. You have to pay 2 years. In fact, it was 2 years before they reduced it to 1 year. It was as a result of
2 years.
Yeah. It was as a result of it's as a result of people started shouting, complaining. They started reducing it now. I'm sure that if there is any law, you are the legal person, that should say what it is. Overseas, what they pay is monthly.
Monthly, 2 weeks.
Yes, so if we should do that based on the time, I don't see anything wrong about it. It's about the system we've seen. That's why we apply.
I think in saying payment, we should also sound it that they ask you to pay ahead. You pay in advance. You're not allowed to use the space until you are paid in advance, to use up the money you are paid in advance. I think there's a whole lot of things that we are not being truthful with ourselves as a nation. You're a civil servant. Your salary comes in a certain amount where you need to be in town so that you can move around to get to your office place on time. Landlords are demanding for outrageous sums of amounts because it's a free economy. It shouldn't be so. There should be standard. The reason why the need for standard comes is so that based on the economic indices, people will be able to manage to live right without necessarily compromising, you know, processes because of the kind of opportunities they have to serve the nation. You can't be working as a civil servant, as a public servant, and you don't have comfortable living environments. It is government's responsibility to provide housing as a constitutional provision. Now, someone saw the opportunity, the loophole, which is more like the lacuna, and said, okay, this is the problem, I'll provide a solution. Now, the process with which he got this money to get to that place, probably had borrowed this money from the bank. He needed to recoup that money within the shortest possible time. So he inflates the rates so as to meet up with the repayment plan that he has. So you now, the consumer, pays more. So everything we do in this country, the consumer is the one that carries the brunt of all of the problems of this nation. So we need to discuss this thing to that level where government will begin to live up to our own responsibility. Because if government houses are available, like it was in the past,
definitely,
what happens? You see, people were paying less until someone came and sold those houses to some persons, and there was no way to return, you know, to to go on this revolving tenancy scheme that used to be on. So people start owning those things, and the more people are moved out of this place. There are houses in this city that are not occupied.
Plenty.
Oh,
Plenty.
in Abuja, it's
thousands, tens of thousands of them not
especially
occupied.
within the central areas.
You know, and I suggested that I think the government needs to begin to impose high taxes on those houses. Those ones that are occupied have low taxes. The ones that are not occupied high taxes, so that the landlords can just give those houses out. What stops us from paying daily? Pay as you earn. You finish your work today, you come out. What stops us from doing that monthly? I have a facility that I give out and people pay daily and you pay hourly. If you use it for 1 hour, you pay for 1 hour. Use it for a day, you pay for a day. Yes, we have that, you know, in Abuja. You know, it's some of my office spaces are actually furnished. I have, you know, houses that tenants live in and sometimes find it difficult to pay. And you can't even drive them. Because you look at the situation, the condition with which they find themselves. It's like, man, I have someone stayed in my house for like 2 years. He didn't pay. I have one that took 5.5 million and just left after staying 1 year, couldn't pay the money. It was even difficult. That's another thing we need to talk about. Difficult to evict a tenant in this country is a challenge because the tenants are actually landlords.
Because I was actually going to ask.
There's a review on that. There's a review on that.
Sorry,
I think.
Adding up to what they've just said, you see, it's unfortunate that our regulatory bodies and people who are charged with responsibility of balancing or managing or mitigating what tenants actually pass through in the hands of landlord, they are not working. For instance, in Lagos State, we have a law like that presently. Before in Lagos State, landlords charge up to 3 years in advance, 2 years. But as we speak in Lagos, and I think what the problem actually is this: we don't have a uniform law on landlord-tenant relationship, tenancy relationship in this country. Tenancy law, we don't. What Lagos has is basically for Lagos State, Nasarawa, FCT, Kaduna, and what have you. Sorry, we don't have a uniform.
No, that's how it should be because every state.
Yeah,
should
I
have
agree.
Its law.
Yes, I agree. But what we're
federating state, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah. But what we're saying, like for Abuja, for instance, the National Assembly, they can enact laws and say no landlord should take more than so amount of money from the tenant from this particular region.
Now, 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom in Asoko is a different price from 2 bedroom in Maitama or
exactly.
Land speculators are the drivers. It's like you look at currently that the oil Brent crude is about $86, you know, for a barrel. The speculators are the ones who mastermind these things. They come and tell you this is a hybrid area, this is a mid density, this is low density, all of those things. Government do not have business in the business of people in the context of an naira and kobo. Why? Because it's a capitalist system. No, you're not running a social system. What you do, you regulate. You don't put a peg on an amount that I should charge in a particular time when you not provide the money.
You didn't give me money to build.
No.
You didn't provide the money for it.
You don't money to build.
See,
you don't have
the fundamental here is,
what do we say, sir?
I agree to that extent.
What do we say, sir, is that look, government should come in to say, look, do not take more than 1 year.
Exactly.
Do not take more than 6 months.
Exactly.
Those things can come in.
But the actual amount, it's not government's business.
No, it's not government business because it's not a social system.
I quite agree with them. It's not government business, but there are regulations. There are things you can put in place. If government, like we said from the onset, if we have mass government houses, you know, naturally the prices of this will naturally drop. They will crash.
It's like telling government to go and put a peg on school fees in private schools when you're not providing the service.
But talking about eviction processes, maybe I don't quite get it right. Sometimes you're in your house minding your business. There's a letter from one bailiff, telling you have a mandate to leave. What are the processes involved? I'm told that if you're a 1 year tenant, you should have certain amount. Is it 1 month or 1 year or 6 months?
6 months.
Yeah.
So why would they give me a notice and tell me you have 1 month to leave?
6 months is
like I said earlier on, various states of the federation, including FCT, they have their own tenancy laws that regulates tenant-landlord relationship in their various states. But however, the general principle is this: in law, like in FCT, Section 12 of the Recovery of Premises Act spelled out the number or duration of notice to be given to tenants, depending on your type of tenancy. And when we talk of tenants, type of tenancy, we have a yearly tenant, we have monthly tenants, we have half-yearly tenants, we have quarterly tenants. We even have tenant at will.
What does that one mean?
Yeah, tenant at will are tenants. They're also tenants whom at your pleasure you give a property to stay free of charge. They don't pay you. Okay. The law is saying that even at that, if you want to eject them from the house, you do need to lay down procedures.
For that one, you should evict them when they want.
Yes, when you want, but it has to be in accordance with what the law says.
The most difficult thing to implement is to evict a tenant.
I was coming to that. The law, as we have it, gives more strength to the tenant than the landlord. Of course, if putting them on a pedestrian, you know the landlord is higher or have more weight than the landlord when you put them side by side. But notwithstanding, the law says if you're a yearly tenant, the law says if you're not desirous of renewing the tenancy of your tenant, you give him a 6-month notice in advance.
Before his
not at the expiration of his rent. Because the mistake most tenants do is that they wait until when their rent expires and the landlord brings a notice to them. You say, my lawyer say you must give me 6 notice, or then say you go give me 6 notice. No. What the law says is that, let me cite an instance here. A tenant occupies or comes into your house from the 1st day of January. And it's a yearly tenant. What it means is that by the 31st of December, his rent would have been due. The rent would have expired. What the law says is that if you don't want him after 31st December, by June, at least by June, you've given him notice that by December 31st, I don't want you again in this property.
So what happens when the landlord does not do that and brings that up in January or December?
Yes,
so
when
it is brought, I can decide to take another 6 months without pay.
You know, from the onset, we talked about tenancy agreement. Irrespective, like I did mention from the onset, if you don't have a document between the tenancy agreement between you, the law, the Recovery of Premises Act in Abuja as it is, will come into play. But if we do have an agreement between us, and I'm a yearly tenant in your property, irrespective of what the law says, I can decide to agree with you that at the expiration of my tenancy, don't give me 6-month notice, even though I'm a yearly tenant as the law specified. Just give me 1 week notice. Just give me 2-month notice. It is what we agree. It is in the absence of our agreement that the law will come in and determine, are you a yearly tenant? Yes. The landlord should have given me 6-month notice prior to the end of my rent. But the tenancy year. But except we have an agreement to that effect, the law will come in to take a stand. And if you're a half-yearly tenant, what the law says, half-yearly tenant and monthly tenant, you're entitled to 1 month notice. Yeah. A tenant at will is entitled to just 1 week notice. Yes. Yes, that's what it means. And you don't do me. When we talk about tenants here, we're not even looking at just the tenant at home. We're looking at tenants who are. We're talking about people who are also tenants in office environment, who are tenants in an estate, who are even tenants of an employee. The fact that I work for you and you give me an accommodation to stay in, if you terminate my appointments today, does not mean you come and eject me the following morning.
With immediate effect.
Which is what you find in the military and
exactly.
security agency.
The law says you must give me that notice. Of course, for instance, if like this setting here, right? We have an accommodation here, and I'm no longer working with 2 people here. At that stage, at the point that my appointment with you was terminated, I now become a tenant at will. I am sitting in that property at your mercy. What the law says, you give me the adequate notice.
Which is minimum 1 week.
1 week.
Now, what happens when you suspect that your tenant has irregular character? Maybe
What do you mean by
he's
irregular character? You need to...
no, irregular character, I mean, it could be a criminal, it could be this, and you decide to interfere, assuming you live with the person. Sometimes they say you're interfering in his business and his private space. But does a landlord not have a right to call in police, for instance, or talk to you, you know, don't use my premises for Yahoo and stuff like that?
You have absolute rights. See, one of the challenges I've discovered we do, before you use my property, you fill a form.
Yes. Tenant acquisition
In some cases, some companies, you have to come with a police report. The reason for the police report is that I don't want to be the one to be blamed for not doing due diligence. If the police gives you a report that certifies you fit as a legal entity to run a business, Abasaram, they say in my village. She laughs. So we need to be able to vet those that we are going to give our properties. What the mistake we do, it dresses nice, it looks good, maybe it comes with a good car. We don't ask those key questions. Where is it coming from? Who was this landlord before coming to your place?
Why did he move?
Where are the referees? You ask those questions. We fill those forms, don't even check them. We don't vet them. And so it's after they have used it for everything, when now somebody comes up with information, oh, this person was a criminal at this place.
And it becomes difficult.
It becomes difficult. Sometimes because of the way they get to us, maybe through known friends or family members. Like I have someone who was introduced by a friend, you know, a judge of good character. He came in, they had issues. As soon as he moved in, it was a difficult thing. Possession check was issued. By the time they was matured, the money was not there. And this was like, okay, what do we do? He said, just give me time. Give it time. So he can send me an account number. Now, this was the first time I got to know him. I sent the account number. Out of 5.5 million naira, what I got was 150 naira, for 50,000 naira.
Is it like?
So he said, I saw a lot. 150. So, oh, sorry, maybe it was a mistake. I will get back. And yours truly, I will get back. That was the end of it. Then I got to realize that that was part payment of the 5.5 million naira. And you know, it lasts because in law, his part payment is in debt. Anytime he's willing to pay his debt, when he will pay his debt.
He played a smart one.
So it was not difficult to now evict him out of the house. We have to resort to spiritual warfare. We pray as Nigerians, you know. And when the wind just came and blew off the roof, then I had my peace. I didn't do it myself, you know. Then he was able to move out of that.
Kevin, are you sure? Because some landlord actually climb up and remove the roof.
You know, but I didn't do it myself. The wind did. It was a prayer.
You're facing national TV.
You know, yes, it was a prayer. That's why I said I need to make it spiritual. It was a prayer that caused that. It's not coincidence. Truly, it's painful that someone will try to outsmart you. That's why some landlords will want to make sure that when they are coming, they are putting you at bay to say, look, these are your parameters. We suffer that. And you know, sometimes some tenants also suffer the same thing from landlords. Landlords will go and borrow money from tenants. It will count it. Just laugh.
Chukuma, have you been a victim? You're laughing. You borrow money from your tenant.
Adding to what Kevin said, you see, he took extra measures to ensure that he knows his tenant very well. To know who is coming to occupy his property. But as we speak, the law in Abuja does not have such provision. What he did was an extra measure on his own part, and it's right. In Nasarawa, in Nasarawa jurisdiction, we have a provision in the law that says you must keep records of your tenant. If you don't do that, peradventure, when an issue comes up in court, you can be questioned on that.
As an accomplice?
Yes,
if it's a
you can be questioned on that.
I have a case of a particular house way back. The guys came to rent the apartment, and the guy fronted himself as a pharmacist. Cute-looking guy, gentle with his tie. The landlord, the caretaker then was convinced, and he gave the house. Eventually, happened to be that those were the real Yahoo guys, and it was difficult to evict them. It happens because we take law for granted. Everything about law, we take it for granted because nobody wants to do due diligence. We don't want to. And when you take it up as a job to do, nobody wants to come and pay you. We are over 790 kilos. We try to believe that we know how to do it. If Kevin has done that, it's a plus.
Yes.
Because not everyone would have that time to do that thing you've done.
I didn't know either before now. It was from experiences that you're like, okay. And because of my background, see, landlords innocently accommodate criminals and become accomplices without knowing. There was a case in Port Harcourt where the building was destroyed because of kidnappers. The law says whatever building that was used for such.
Of course.
Port Harcourt, Anambra.
And you know, so this has happened. Now, in some cases, the landlord are also partners of the business of kidnapping. I have an house here, we'll use it. You know, so if we keep asking the right questions, we'll be able to address some of these issues and ensuring that we need to be educated. Nigerians can always do right if they know the right to do. But we always find a way around it if it will cost them so much money and they don't know the right to do. If we ask the right questions and ensure people are educated, I always like to go to the cradle. What does your child know about housing relationship, housing a landlord and tenant relationship? So that as he's growing, he's preparing to understand that these are the things. How accessible are the laws of the land to these kids in the context of their own understanding? They don't know these things. I didn't know much of these things until maturity and getting to get the experience. If we are exposed to these things, we'll be able to ask the right questions and we'll be able to reduce that. Then government on our part, I see what I'm at this time, need to begin to provide housing, comfortable, affordable housing. Not the one they say mass housing and they give to their contractor, their cronies, and they charge so crazy amount of money.
And the houses don't even look good.
They don't look good because it's no standard.
Before we leave, our time is really not ours anymore. Quickly, you mentioned at different times about estate management fee. You know, if you're living on an estate, service charge. Now, a lot of times I've heard people complain. As a matter of fact, a couple of days back, an intern complained about certain things. Fees were not paid. Some people were trying to come into the compound. They wouldn't let them until you show your fee. And then some other person told me if you're carrying gadgets in your car and you haven't paid your fee, they won't let any gadget in. Then another person told me, what's extreme case? They locked them out. They can't enter. So how do we manage such situation? Because the truth is people should be able to pay. But where they don't pay and they are given problems, what do we do?
It's no problem, sorry. No. If you call it problem, pay.
Okay, if I call it problem, I should pay.
If you call it problem, pay.
Okay,
what? The truth is, you live in an estate. The estate is maintained. The estate is properly managed. Now, if you want to enjoy what your neighbors are enjoying, do what your neighbor is doing. You can't come into an estate. They are paying money to sweep the road. You're not paying money to sweep the road. Yet your children are littering every place. You're driving, and you want the me too. I will vote.
Yeah, but you see, the resort to self, before you come in, sir, the resort to self-help should not be encouraged. Sometimes some tenants, not that they don't want to pay, have not been able to meet up with the financial obligations due to certain economic reasons.
Right.
And that's why the common sense should come in to inform the estate management, give me time.
I will pay.
I will pay.
So whose money would they use to do this?
No, in enforcement now, what they needed to do was based on the agreements that were entered by the tenants and the estate management, they present that to the law. And the law will take its due course. For people to resort to self-help, imagine this man trying to go out to meet up with business opportunity, you stopped him from going, and he gets angry, and something happened. What happens? A fracas, destruction. Somebody dies.
All right.
So we need to begin to resort to the law instead of resorting to self-help.
All right,
so now let's follow the
process.
process.
I think I concur with Kevin that we need not use self-help.
I agree.
We need not use self-help. Where you feel, and just the practice generally, you know, sometimes practice is different from theory, right? What we should do in that case, assuming somebody is coming to rent a property in an estate, he knows from the onset that he has to pay for service charges and what have you. Ensure that he pays before he moves in, right? Don't allow him to
when it expires.
When it expires, definitely when it expires,
as he's paying his house rent,
as he's paying, he's supposed to pay maybe as at when he's paying his house rent, and refuses to pay, you sue for the balance. You sue for the balance.
They will make money for the brothers.
There are more lawyers that...
No, but seriously, at that part, it's even cheaper than when you finally resort to litigation.
It's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Forget the way we do it. Like it's the right. What you just
said. We try to do these things with both faces.
No,
not necessarily that is the right thing. Sometimes you see the estate management with the security, they just barricade the road.
No, that is self-help.
You know, sometimes even pull off your things from the car.
You do that to me, I will sue you.
Or put tires. Anyway, our time is up. We got to go. Whatever it is. Someone once said that, do unto others what you want others to do unto you. Think of your house where you're living as a tenant as though it were yours. And then that way, tomorrow, God will be able to empower you to build your own house. Take care of somebody else's property, and there will be people to take care of your property. That's my take. And if you're a landlord, please don't be Shylock. Don't cut the flesh and draw blood. It doesn't make sense. Tomorrow, anything can happen. Tables can turn, and you get to lose it, and then you become a tenant. And God help you if I'm your landlord. I'll deal right back. Okay, we'll see you again next week. Ciao, ciao.
Set me.
Oh, come on, G.
I beg, allow me make my food just digest.
Hey, madam. Madam, I don't need that money. No one that move for this place. No that government don't lock my restaurant. All that way you just stop it. Before now they were talking about what's in the my shop. Don't tell me to stop. Don't tell me that. Wait. I beg your pardon. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Just stop that way you want to. Stop it. Who is begging you? I said, I beg your pardon. Just stop it!
This is the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I am Muslima Sholebo. This is the news at 10.
And I am Anne Jibuno on the news this hour. Now, the headlines.
President Buhari urges religious leaders to assist government towards overcoming forces of destruction for sustainable peace and development.
National Assembly reconvenes, reads backlog of executive communication awaiting legislative attention.
INEC warns political parties against embarking on campaigns ahead of
99
scheduled
subsection
time.
1 prohibits campaigns by political parties earlier than 90 days.
Ministry of Water Resources to partner other ministries to strengthen sanitation in Nigeria.
Religious leaders in the country have been urged to render necessary support, cooperation and assistance to the government towards overcoming all forces of destruction for sustainable peace and socio-economic development.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who had made the appeal, said this can be achieved if their followers are properly enlightened and guided to guard against religious extremism